An outcast paladin, Xal'atath, and spycraft. 3 incredible new Warcraft stories. I love it when Bellular does these lore events. So let's look at this lore, dive into it, and figure out what these 3 lore events coming forward are going to be all about. Here we go.
Welcome back. Today I've got 3 big stories to share with you, as well as a roundup of the tastiest tidbits. So,
damn it, fucking blurps. Always forgetting to pause them right before. Piece of shit from chat.
Phase 2 of Season of Discovery has kicked off. It's got some huge new lore. Phase 1 set the tone. Phase 2 is cooking hard. There's a web of conspiracies being woven throughout Azeroth, and a few of them are way bigger than we expected. Okay. Xalatath has reappeared, foreshadowing a debt to be paid in later phases, or perhaps even with the war within.
She has reappeared in both Season of Discovery and Retail, which I love. I love the way they're tying the lore threads together between these, and I feel like there's going to be some crazy reveals coming forward.
Got the tale of a paladin banished because the Silver Hand couldn't handle the truth, a crime thriller with a dwarf hot on the heels of the Royal Apothecary Society and their new plague. We've got a night elf who hates the Alliance, Dark Riders of Karazhan.
That's right.
And like literally the
Dark
Riders of Karazhan. This is their first canonical appearance in the game, so that's crazy. And we've got a rogue wrapped up in schemes beyond their control. This stuff is massive. It amps the core canon of Warcraft like never before. There's a lot to get through.
A shadow of
Phase 2
doubt.
brings in new best-in-slot crafted items, and just like Phase 1, that means there's a crazy quest chain connected. This time we're in Gnomeregan, which is not the natural home for Void lore, but Xalatath has in fact managed to make an appearance. Gnomeregan is a technological marvel, but to get your Neuro-linked Arcanofilament monocle or your Whirling True Silver gear wall, you need find a way to cleanse the filth of everything you salvage. Now, the Salvage-O-Matic 9000 can do that, but it itself is filthy. So the quest chain is about getting Ziri, the wrench little sprocket, what she needs to get the thing going. So you find the G7 core processor that's needed, but of course it's corrupted, and this kicks off a zany gnomish adventure throughout Kalimdor. You find
I
4
wonder what the lore tie would be for Xalatath to be at Gnomeregan. What could be there? I mean, there's just the corruption, the whole, what's it called? Leper gnome thing going on. What else is going on over there? What would be the point of going? There's no really, void issues going on in Gnomeregan at the time. Maybe she'll reveal something. What? The plague? Yeah, there's the leper spreading, stuff like that, but besides that, I don't remember any kind of void-touched items or anything like that going on in there. Underground stuff? Maybe. Yeah, that's true. Maybe it could be underground stuff. We know that the deeper you go underground, the more void influence there is on Azeroth. That's been a common theme. Wipe out the gnome race, hopefully. Oh, Jesus.
Those lead to teleport coordinates to a secret mountaintop base of the processor's inventor, Weirdal Wondergear. Now, this guy clearly
don't the gnomes dig a lot?
Pretty dangerous stuff.
Less than the dwarves. They're not as known for digging as dwarves, but they do dig. Yeah, I mean, I guess so.
As it turns out, is powered with a charged void core. Yes. Now, finding the inert core is the easy part. Charging it is rather impossible.
So their machine is charged by a void core, okay.
At least, not without a void patron, but luckily, we've already got one watching over us. So, as we adventure through Fairless and kill more and more, the shadowy void figure who powered up our void gear in Phase 1 shows up, and she tells us, for nothing more than altruism, that she will recharge our void core. She raises a hand, and a mote of darkness appears. We silently agree to take it, but the shadowy figure says
she wants to recharge this void core with the machine that these gnomes have created. Okay, there's the tie-in.
One day she hopes we're in a similarly altruistic mood. So we're clearly building a mutually beneficial relationship with this
she
character.
loves that stuff.
She calls us smart, and then she disappears. The quest chain quickly closes after that, with the Salvage-O-Matic 9000 being repaired, but of course the big news here is the shadowy figure is still following us, and I think there can no longer be any doubt we're talking about Xalatath. I mean, for a full breakdown of why this level 63 high elf in void form is Xalatath, you can check out our previous video.
No, it's definitely
but essentially, this is a blind spot in her history. What we previously know is that a Stormwind bishop after the First War, Natalie Celine, held Xalatath Blade of the Black Empire and used it to study the dark magic of orc necrolytes. But after that, we have no idea until the blade shows up in the hands of Twilight cultists in the Legion expansion, which is where we first learned about it. The other huge clue is this is a High Elf in Void form, which basically is the closest you can get to a Void Elf in that version of the game, right? In Classic. And it looks very similar to the War Within Xal'atath. Yeah. Now, in a way,
it's all but confirmed. It's guaranteed that that is Xal'atath. That hasn't been confirmed in the lore of SOD, but everything she's doing, her relation to the Void, the way she talks to the player, the player character, it's all very Xal'atath-esque. So it is her.
Surely at this time, she's just a dagger. Well, that's where you can actually think back to the deals that have been done during the Dragonflight expansion with the Infinite Dragonflight. So this could in fact be her manipulating events through them. Maybe Xal'atath in her elf form has found a way to go to the past, and this is something that is playing out through Season of Discovery.
Yeah.
And maybe that is why she has such a...
That's the main debate, right? Is this the same Xal'atath that we're dealing with, or is she just an alternate timeline Xal'atath? I personally think it's the same one. I think she has the ability to jump between timelines, and it's a major power, a major ability, and she's playing on both sides, right? Doing things in SOD to affect the future, and doing things in our timeline to, fulfill her plan of being the harbinger, the bringer of something, as that is defined by. I think Blizzard said it's our timeline. Yeah. I think it's all but confirmed. This is the same Xal'atath.
Knowing and playful tone with us. Anyway, this brief appearance I think promises more. I cannot wait to see what Season 3 holds, especially because Season 3 and Darkheart, which is Dragonflight's final and seemingly very Xal'atath-focused patch, will be at a similar enough time. That could be pretty big, but that's actually not the end of today's stories. Let's move on to story number 2.
It's not just Darkheart. We're getting a whole Xal'atath quest line and a storyline for 10.2.7. So that's going to be a big part of the preview for the War Within. Just a cozy sleep.
Okay, it's time for a mystery with all the markings of a noir crime thriller that tells us the origins of Azeroth's most controversial weapon and even goes a bit further. In this, we find level 77 secret agents. One could be a worgen, the other one might actually be a bronze dragon. It's all pretty crazy, and it starts with this.
What? I know nothing about
a humble sleeping bag. It grants a modest XP gain of 3% for 3 hours, but it's not about the XP. Today, it's about the lore drop that's coming with the sleeping bag. Now, this mystery begins with Stromgarde the Syndicate and the Royal Apothecary Society. A maverick, possibly known as CB, has led a personal investigation, but they get in too deep. They had to get out quick, and in the process, they left their cozy sleeping bag behind for us to find. Now, at the center of this web is Sylvanas and her schemes, the most important of which being the New Plague. Now, you begin this in either the Barrens or Westfall. For the sake of this, we'll kick it off with Westfall. In Alexton Farm, there's a crime scene, a destroyed cart with bodies burnt beyond recognition. No evidence but a slip of paper pointing towards the Barrens. So we follow that. And near Mulgore, a ginger tabby cat leads to another murder scene. But this time, we don't just arrive to the murder scene. We actually see a note left by somebody else. And that note reads like this. Mission said they were making deliveries for New Plague. Looks like simple apothecary accidents to me. So this, obviously, raises a few questions. Who is Mission? What is New Plague? What's going on? What are they on the trail of?
I have to say, one of the best things about Season of Discovery is how deep they are diving into the lore. And I think it's part of it Blizzard has realized that people really do care about the lore. The lore matters because it just gets you more involved. It gets you more into the game. Right? It gets you deeper into the game. You feel it more. You get more interested in playing through, figuring out what's going on. Lore does matter. Even the anti-lore Andes, right? There are Andes out there who just don't even read quest text. Plenty of people never read quest text. But well-delivered lore can get you into it. It immerses you more, I should say. Get up that immersion. Yeah. Tidewell, yeah.
What we can piece together, though,
that's my favorite part about Season of Discovery.
We've seen some sort of murder or disaster scene, but they kind of look like cover-ups. They are made to look like apothecary accidents. Okay, we then find another hiding spot in Stone Talon where 3 bows are arranged in the shape of what could be the initials CB. And that's where we get a quest named CB. Wet Job. Now, wet job, sort of in the lingo, is a covert assassination performed by a government operative. So,
my mind went somewhere else. Okay, glad he put up the definition. That was not how I defined it in my mind. Okay.
actually
All right.
looks like
Quickly, let's move
CB
on.
was carrying out a hit on Apothecary Society caravans around the world whilst they were delivering new plague. A few clues like guns being
Plot
used
matters,
and food
always.
crates actually point towards CB being a dwarf, and the next clue sends us to Loch Modan, where another one of his camps, the Eagle's Fist, is found on the actual dam. This time around, there's a note, and the note speaks of loyalty to
Okay,
the
I mean,
Eagle and Fist.
this quest line, I'm not going to lie, somebody's doing something here. Because what do we got? We got... This started out with CB, the initials, then we got Wet Job, and now the Eagle's Fist. Yeah, there's a dev out there playing a game, and he thinks we're not going to catch on, but this stream ain't going to miss
We
it,
also
that's for
see
sure.
a long-barreled rifle with a scope pointing towards
And a long-barreled rifle. Yeah, someone's fucking around. This is not all
the
a
Arathi
coincidence.
Highlands. Now, the symbols for Stromgarde are the eagle and fist, so that's one very clear connection.
Here it is.
And this leads us to CB's final camp, and of course, the cozy sleeping bag. This is also where the mystery kicks into
And
the
it all
next
ends in a
level,
sleeping
and
bag.
it really does make me interested for Phase 3. So, as we climb the wall,
I wanna
two
know what
secret
happens in Phase
agents
3 now,
appear,
too.
a male and a female, and they watch you from afar. If you get close, they will disappear in a flash of light. What's weird, though,
Damn,
is
that's
they're
creepy
level
as hell.
77, and one of them tracks as a beast. Now, level 77, that basically
What the
is
hell?
Wrath of the Lich King, like, levels, right? It also could be War Within levels, post, like, you know, squishes. Who really knows what's going on
pretty cool,
there?
actually.
It could suggest that they are just very powerful beings. It could also suggest that there could be an element of time travel here, maybe a bronze agent, something like that. Then, of course, the new plague is involved. Are
Interesting.
Infinites or the Bronze looking into the new plague? That's, of course, the new concoction of the plague that Sylvanas has made that is supposed to be able to kill, you know, the living and the dead.
Right,
Now,
that's what
if
she
you
uses
wanted
at
to
the
go
Wrath Gate.
really crazy, part of the deaths of Chromie takes place in the Western Plague Lands, and CB could spell Chromie Bronze, but that also does to me sound completely
Yeah.
crackpot.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go on. So CB says they're going underground until the heat is off, and really with that, the trail kind of goes cold for us. We have to assume it will be picked up later. But there are some other clues, right? Two books, Beyond the Dark Portal and The Aftermath of the Second War. These are resting on a table. Now,
Okay.
dragons and dwarves were both, key to many stories post-Second War, but even looking at those characters, I can't put my finger on anyone with the initial CB.
say he can't put his
who
finger on
CB
anyone?
is, that is a mystery. Now, it is currently believed by the community that
going
there
on
does
here?
remain a interaction with those secret agents that still could be found. But right now, the trail appears to be cold. Either way, though, this does feel a bit tied to the Forsaken story. So, to catch you up on that, the Horde were initially very hesitant to let the Forsaken in, given their recent past. Now,
Right.
the Apothecary Society had been working on a new plague that would kill both the living and the dead, but it was being developed under the guise of it being a cure. Now, fresh Forsaken quests through Tirisfal help various apothecaries actually test early versions of this on the Scarlets. The first time the Alliance got was Finn Odalick's investigation in Goshak Farm. That's where Forsaken couriers were caught with documents proving that there
About the plague.
is actually a new plague in
Yeah.
existence. So it could tie into that. Basically, though, this simple quest chain about a bloody sleeping bag has actually shown us that the Royal Apothecary Society is sending agents across the whole world in search of knowledge and ingredients. They're in Westfall. They're in the Barrens.
Sounds like
we
Dreadlords,
The Kingdom of Stromgarde
honestly.
has seemingly known about this from the beginning, has maybe had agents assassinating them where they can, because again, the agent...
Although, why would a Dreadlord disguise himself as a secret agent? I mean, they could just disguise themselves as anything. It would be silly to be disguised as a secret agent disguising itself as something else. It's kind of silly. So I don't think they're Dreadlords, but it just sounds like them.
following says they are loyal to basically the symbols of Stromgarde. We can then also glean that there's likely another faction involved. Could be the Syndicate, could be SI7, and could be a dragon, could be Gilneans, even when you think about those two agents and what they could
Right,
do.
Gilneans were always...
It's pretty crazy.
tracking the undead.
I have to imagine this will unfold throughout the season of Discovery, but ultimately, this
Full throw.
culminates with the use of that new plague at the Wrathgate.
What the hell? Okay, the
Our next
radical
story is
paladin.
really fantastic. So, in Phase 1, Paladins went on an epic quest chain, slaying Blackrock orcs, doing jobs for warlocks, and cracking down on infernals in Ashenvale. The whole thing centered around cleansing a mysterious orb found in the Tower of Athalax. Through those quests, the Paladin gained a divine storm, but there were still questions. I mean, just what was the Argus Weight cult actually up to, and what was the orb about? Those things remained a mystery. Until now, in what is revealed as a conspiracy stretching from the Silver Hand to the Scarlet Crusade with Dreadlord fingerprints all over it.
Aha, the
story
Dreadlords.
begins with a disgraced
Making
paladin.
their appearance.
In Nigel's Point, we find an idealistic monk named Anton, who's not yet aware that the Scarlet Crusade has fallen to madness. Now, he asks
Yeah,
adventurers
and probably not yet aware that I think it is in Season of Discovery as well. All but it's the same thing. There's a dreadlord leading the Scarlets. They don't know it yet, but he is a dreadlord.
to go south and to kill undead ravagers. On the way, we find the infested highborn ruins known as Manorock Coven, and at the heart of those ruins, there are signs of a brutal fight. 2 Scarlet Crusaders lie dead with a broken battle hammer at the center. Now, killing demon-worshipping orcs around the ruins, we then find on one of them a communique from their leadership, and when we read that, we discover that due to the Coven's ineptitude, 2 groups of interlopers broke in and they stole something valuable. Now, the first group are the Scarlet Crusaders, who the leader says they will deal with personally.
Right,
I'll
okay.
get onto this in a second, but
Who's the second
with this,
group?
we're actually likely hearing from a Dreadlord in this note, which is fairly cool. And at the time, what Dreadlords were doing is essentially trying to lead the Legion presence on Azeroth, and they had possessed the Scarlet Crusader leader, Dathrahan. Anyway,
Right.
the second group that's mentioned, they're not Scarlets. They're a pair of Paladins, one of whom wielded a silver hand hammer.
Oh
So,
shit!
we
So
go
they
back to
infiltrated
Storm.
the Silver Hand. I don't remember any lore about them. The Scarlet Crusade lore, everybody knows that one. They, the Scarlets, that they were led by a dreadlord. But infiltrating the Silver Hand, when did that happen? Or is this just an SOD thing? Thanks,
And
Mikey.
there, Catherine the Pure knows who owns that hammer, but refuses to talk about him in detail. We find out that this person is called Aeonis the Quiet, and he was banished from the Silver Hand for holding radical viewpoints. So, he was banished. People thought that he just kind of disappeared. What we do know about him, however, is that he loved to fish, and that leads us to our next stop, Harold Riggs, the fishing trainer in Menethil Harbor, who tells us about a nice older fella named
at those
Aeonis,
sandals.
who would occasionally sail into town
Never trust a man in sandals. Never trust a man in sandals. That was the first
on a
mistake here.
leaking boat for supplies and to talk shop. And supposedly he's a nice sort of guy. But the thing is, just a day before, a group, our fishing trainer says, who were dressed in red like clowns at a carnival, they rode into town asking after Aeonis. So, Riggs points us far, far off the coast of the wetlands where we find Aeonis' fishing cabin, and again, we come upon the signs of a struggle. There are dead Scarlet Crusaders on the ground. Another Crusader jumps from cover, tries to kill us, and it turns out he was told to stay and to tie up any loose ends. Now, they hold orders from the Grand Crusader, and they read as follows. The heretic known as Aeonis the Quiet is hereby condemned for the high crime of consorting with demons and the undead, forsaking the fight, larceny, and murder.
Okay, so they caught him basically dealing with dreadlords.
Goes on, but the point is that Aeonis is supposed to be taken to Scarlet Monastery, where he will be tortured and he will be killed. Again,
all
do
right.
remember, Grand Crusader Dathrahan, who is running this whole shindig, he is currently possessed by
is
the
a Dreadlord,
Dreadlord
yeah.
Balnazar.
Right.
So, why would the Dreadlords want to kill Aeonis? That's the question.
He knew
We
too
go
much.
back to Stormwind, having learned a lot more, and with that, Catherine is ready to give us some more detail. It turns out Aeonis was a member of the Order of the Silver Hand since the Second War, that he fought with distinction, but that leading up to the Third War, he started to express heretical opinions. He thought the light was not a religion, but a force of nature, something that could be used for evil if the mind behind it was convinced they were
Hey, not completely wrong, right? That's some interesting lore there. Because we know now that the light is not, in fact, it's not really like a godlike presence. It's a power that can be wielded to do evil, right? Like he's saying, if the person who's using it believes they are doing right, but they're still doing wrong. I mean, we've seen that stuff, right, in WoD, right? We've seen what's going on in Draenor with the conversion of the orcs and everything going on with what's her name, that damn Draenei who lost her mind. So there's a lot of stuff going on with the light now that we realize, oh, it's not all good as we personally thought. I'm back to Twitch on mobile. Welcome.
Right.
Urel.
Now, of
Yeah, that's her name, Urel.
course, at the time, that would have been a pretty crazy thing to say, but very shortly after, it became obvious that he was right. Catherine admits that this was before Arthas culled Stratholme, before the Scarlet Crusade began, you know, hanging people and doing all sorts of crazy, messed up things that were absolutely evil, but even in doing those evil acts, they were still able to wield the light. The whole point is that it depends on the practitioner's level of belief.
He wasn't really crazy.
So, yeah, Aeonis was right.
He was
the
right,
events of Warcraft 3 and Vanilla World Warcraft would prove him right. The Silver Hand, of course, are wrong. And by the time we
Not just that, yeah, like I said, the events of Legion, the events of WoD, there's been plenty of proof showing that the light can be wielded for evil too, or the wrong way. And there's a lot of questions going on in current WoW about what's going to happen with the Throne of Stormwind, right? What's going to happen with the Throne of Stormwind? Is Anduin going to be able to take it back? What's going to happen with, Catherine is, goddamn, Catherine ain't bad. Yeah, in terms of the light, what is going to happen going forward? We know that it's a force that's trying to push its views, its values, and it's using people to do that. And it could use them in the wrong way.
talk to Catherine, all of this is completely obvious. So, with all of that being clear, they're actually ready to accept Aeonis back into their ranks. So, we gotta save him. We bust into Scarlet Monastery, and we find him in High Inquisitor Whitemane's chamber. We save him, we bring him back to Stormwind, and he takes his place in the cathedral, now known as Aeonis the Vindicated. But this is actually where the grand conspiracy kicks off.
Maybe. I don't see Anduin going back. If you're talking about the Throne of Stormwind, maybe. I think he's going to learn about the true light. I think there is a truer, more pure version of the light that we're going to learn about in Hallowfall, going into the War Within, because it's described as a flaming light, which is different from what we currently use as light. And that's the true light that he's going to find. He lost the light, lost touch with the light recently, but I think he's going to find himself dealing with a new light, and he's going to bring that back to Stormwind. I just don't know if, oh my god, I'm drawing a blank on I can remember no names this morning, but who is currently sitting on the throne of Stormwind, whether or not he's going to step down willingly. Oh, wow. Oh, wow, look at Dalgarath, thank you for the raid, man. The big dick raid. 72 raiders brought in here to our Scourge. Welcome in, boys. We're delving into some lore real quick before we get into the game. Yes, welcome, welcome. I was just talking about the light and everything that's happening with it in our current retail WoW as it has to do with Season of Discovery. Yes, yeah, that's a big one. That's a big raid.
Us about the orb that we got in Alphalax, and he confirms that he was looking for something similar to that in Manorock Coven. These things are known as echoing orbs, and they're scattered throughout Azeroth. The Legion are trying to gather these in preparation for something. Now, remember, at this point in history, it's Vanilla WoW, and we do not know what is coming. Obviously, now we know that in just a few years, the Dark Portal would open, the Burning Crusade expansion would begin, so who knows what the Dreadlords
By the way, I was thinking of Terrellian. He's the one who's really into the light, and I wonder if he's going to step down if Anduin does return, or he's going to have a bigger problem. He might see the light that Anduin finally wields to be, impure or something. He might see it as blasphemous. Because Terrellian is religiously into the light. He's had his DNA changed by the light. That's why he's lived as long as he has.
Are preparing for it, but it's likely that what they're doing, well, it's got something to do with these orbs. As for Aeonis, well, he needs a little bit of a rest, but then he says he'll be right back in their trail. But first, he needs to find his accomplice. And this is where it's interesting, because someone has been helping him. Now, Aeonis wants to keep the name to himself because it's somebody who has a colorful history. We can only guess, but if we're talking about another paladin with a colorful history, one who was banished and lived as a hermit for many years before finally being vindicated for his views, we can only think of one person, Tyrion Fordring, who currently is hanging out in the Eastern Plaguelands. And that does mean we could actually here be getting a snapshot of what Tyrion was up to in those years of isolation, that perhaps him and Aeonis the Vindicated were waging a secret.
He is the Obi-Wan Kenobi of WoW. Look at him in hiding right now. He is literally the Obi-Wan.
War with the Dreadlords, which is just really cool. Okay, with that said, it's time to round up a number of other very interesting stories. Every class has rune acquisition stuff that begins at a campsite in Desolus. Now, this campsite is rough. It's a massacre of humans and dwarves. Getting on the trail, we investigate the horde, leading us to bandits in Booty Bay who work for a night elf called Ilari Duskfeather. And it turns out that she has actually been brutally murdering members of the Alliance because she thinks that her people joining the Alliance was actually a very bad thing.
That's right, we talked about her,
If you're not aware of the
actually.
lore, the Night Elves have been isolationists for thousands of years, and as far as they were concerned, all their troubles started when humans and orcs showed up. Now, we have to put her down, but if you're a Night Elf, you do get a unique, peaceful outcome to this quest where Ilari tells...
Ilari, by the way, I don't think he says we have to put her down, but I think she ends up escaping. But I just want to say, Ilari, by the way, true Night Elf. She is a true Night Elf. You know, she goes back to the days of Warcraft 3 where Night Elves were, like he said, isolationists. Night Elves were brutal. They were a brutal race. They would just kill or banish people all the time. And now you know, the kissing Night Elves that we know in Dragonflight, that's a far removal from original Night Elves and how they were.
Why
It's a
she
callback
hates
to the truth about Night Elves.
Okay, let's move to our next story. Before Medivh went totally mad, merchants from around Stormwind would sell him magical artifacts. A group of 7 sold him fake items, and Medivh cursed them to eternally hunt the world for magical items to bring back to Medivh. Now, these guys became the Black Riders of Karazhan. One day, the magical vaults of Dalaran were raided, and 7 artifacts were taken. Dalaran's scryers saw images of 7 dark figures. But this should have been impossible. Dalaran was at this time under a big energy shield. Very confusing. Anyway, we, the players, gather these 7 artifacts, but the thing here that is very significant is this is the first appearance, the earliest canonical appearance of the Dark Riders in World of Warcraft, which is just cool. And the dev team have described a lot of these things that they're doing, like the new lore, as essentially being found photos, sorts of things that canonically did happen in the past, but we're only really sort of finding them or playing them now. I think when done tastefully like this, it's a really fantastic addition.
Yeah, that's cool.
There are a few other really neat things. As an example, in Scarlet Monastery, there's a item that drops, right? It's this silver hand training hammer, and it's a hammer that fell in battle alongside its wielder against the Orcish hordes in Theramore. So, getting the hammer, people have been walking all over Theramore trying to find some sort of like new interaction that, you know, could be unlocked for the wielder of the hammer. That seemingly hasn't happened yet, though. Another example is there's this ancestral sword that references Kairos, which is a settlement that had only ever been referenced in Warcraft 2, which is just neat, right?
I love
Them
that
going
stuff,
back
man.
to all of this really old stuff. And yeah, there's also loads of new lore that just... It was kind of too straight and simple to fit into this video. Things like why the Zandalari are in Stranglethorn, or why King Mechatork went mad in the first place.
the coolest thing about
It's
Season
all
of
really
Discovery.
cool. Phase 2 isn't finished. It likely still has more to reveal, and to be honest, I think it's a confirmation that a lot of this lore being put into the Season of Discovery, that some of it's maybe more radical than we thought, or at the very least, just gives us far more to chew on, which I really love.
Yeah, and it all relates back to
It actually
retail.
does
It's
feel
really
like
cool
they're
stuff.
expanding the lore, and because it's not data mined and it's all found out via people just playing the game, it just feels completely natural. I think this is a humongous success, and I hope you enjoyed today's video going through some of the news stories that we've been able to experience. Okay, that's it
Very
for
cool.
me today. Of course, I'll be back soon. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I'll see you next time.
Yeah, best part about Season of Discovery is the lore reveals that we've been getting. And I'm not a classic Andy. I don't play Season of Discovery, but I do keep up with the lore from it because it is so cool and it reveals a lot about retail too. If you're into that stuff, it's a fun thing to follow, that's for sure. Great video.